It was a crisp autumn day in New England during the year of 1844 when William Miller, a Baptist lay preacher, gathered along with a few of his followers to witness the appearing of Christ. William Miller based this hope on one particular prophecy found in the book of Daniel. However, being fully aware of the possibility for error, William Miller was very reluctant to set an exact date, though he did believe Christ's return was certain. Based on his own study, as well as the interpretation of his colleague Samuel S. Snow, he calculated that Christ would return October 22, 1844. The main text for this prophecy is found in Daniel 8:14.
For 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed.
Miller applied the biblical principle that in prophecy a day symbolizes 1 year. Based on this, he logically concluded that this prophecy covered a 2,300-year time span, and if he could identify the starting point, he could then calculate when the sanctuary would be cleansed. It's important to note that the popular theology of that time period understood the earth to be the sanctuary. Through his careful study of the Bible and world history, he found the starting point he had been looking for in Daniel chapter 9, verse 25, which speaks of the decree to rebuild Jerusalem. Historical record shows this decree was given by Artaxerxes I of Persia in the year 457 BC. So Miller simply added 2,300 years to that date and came up with the year 1844. It is also important to restate that this was a theory of William Miller based on much sound evidence and logic. Even so, he always presented this theory to others with a measure of caution in case there was something that may have been overlooked or misunderstood. He also took this discovery seriously in the event his calculations were correct. Based on all the evidence at hand, William Miller and a few of his followers, sometimes called Millerites, gathered at Ascension Rock, a limestone ledge behind Miller's farm, on October 22, 1844, and waited in vain for Christ to return. When Christ did not appear, Miller and his followers experienced what came to be known as the Great Disappointment. After this disappointment, many of the thousands who had joined the Second Advent awakening left it in deep disillusionment. However, others, realizing that it was human error in the interpretation and still trusting in the Bible, went back to re-examine this prophecy more closely to uncover where they had gone wrong. After much prayer and further study, they confirmed the year 1844 was correct. However, the event had been misunderstood. They found that this date did not foretell the return of Christ, but instead described the judgment in heaven. It marked Christ's ministry typified by the priest's annual entry into the most holy place in the earthly sanctuary. After coming to understand this, their faith was renewed and they permanently abandoned the attempt to predict when Christ would return to the earth. However, they were strengthened in their faith and in the clear biblical teaching that Christ would return as he had promised. From this group who refused to give up after the Great Disappointment arose several leaders who built the foundation that would become the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This small group of Adventists began to grow in North America, mainly in the Northeast, where Miller's movement had also begun. Ellen White, who was just a teenager during the Great Disappointment, later became a renowned author, speaker, and church leader. Until her death in 1915, she was a trusted spiritual counselor of the Adventist family. Even today, her many writings serve as valuable reference materials to aid in the study of the Bible. From the time of the Great Disappointment, this Adventist group found new momentum and continued to grow rapidly. Because of this growth and a need to organize, they met in Battle Creek, Michigan in 1860 and chose to identify themselves by the name Seventh-day Adventist. In 1863, these Seventh-day Adventists officially organized as a church with a membership of around 3,500, all in North America. However, by 1900, the church had spread to many parts of the world with a membership of more than 75,000. Then, by the mid-1960s, it had grown to more than 1.5 million. Today, because of its members' passion to share their faith in Christ and extend a helping hand to others in His name, the Adventist Church has become one of the fastest growing Christian movements on earth. With a current membership approaching 25 million and an ever-rising average growth rate of 3,000 members per day. Since the 1840s, Adventist believers have continued to share the three angels' messages, sounding the call to abandon non-biblical practices and return to the worship of the true God of creation. In return, multitudes of people have responded and chosen to follow the commandments of God and accept the faith of Jesus.